waiting your turn. If it matters to you, it's important to us.
If you watched President Obama's speech last night, you noticed that he did touch on an issue that is devastating many American families, behind in their mortgage payments and facing foreclosure. There were cries from some for help for Main Street instead of Wall Street, and the Obama administration has responded. They proposed a $75 billion foreclosure rescue plan. It promises to help millions of Americans in trouble. But let's take a look at exactly who would be eligible for this help and how it might work. Plus, will the incentives be there for the banks and mortgage servicers to really negotiate with you? And will the rescue work to stabilize the housing market, or is it merely postponing the inevitable? Might these people lose their houses anyway? Joining us today, Terry Smiljanich operates a website called ConsumerWarningNetwork.com. He's also a senior partner at Newcomer and Smiljanich, a firm that is the co-lead counsel on the nationwide suit against AmeriQuest. And Peter Murphy is here. He's with Home Encounter, a real estate consulting firm. Terry, were you heartened when you heard the president has rolled out a bailout for the people on Main Street?
Actually, yes, I was. You know, it's gotten a lot of criticism, but for me, it's a half of a glass. I mean, it's either half full or half empty, depending on how you want to look at it. It can't solve the problem, but you've got to start somewhere in addressing the issue, because here's what we're faced with. We're faced with the aftermath of several years of irresponsible behavior, and it's irresponsible behavior starting with mortgage lenders and mortgage brokers who went out of their way to force or to sell as many refinancing and mortgages as they could, because that was the climate to make more money in. Some irresponsible behavior by some borrowers who knowingly borrowed way beyond their means and thought of a home not as a home but as an investment. And irresponsible behavior by Congress and regulators who sat back and just watched all this happen. As a result, we're dealing with the aftermath of that. And the way I like to I think we should visualize it is we're standing by a stream and there are bodies floating past us, and we're trying to pull the bodies out of the water as fast as we can. Well, the first step ought to be go further upstream and stop the bodies from sliding into the water in the first place. Stop more bodies from getting into the water. And this plan is trying to address the issue of stopping the foreclosure bleeding as much as possible, and also helping people who are not currently behind in their payments but can't refinance and take advantage of lower interest rates right now because they don't have enough equity in their home.
Okay, Peter, your view of how this will help or not?
Yeah, I'm not really optimistic about it. You know, what I see here is a president who seemed to jump in very quickly with a bailout, you know, while he still had some political capital, but without any kind of real mindset of what the market needed. His proposal, first of all, that you cannot owe any more than 105% of your home's value just doesn't seem to affect enough people to really make a difference. That 105% of your home's value, when you consider that home prices have declined 30% over the last year in Tampa Bay area alone, means that you would have had to finance no more than 75% of your home to even avail of this bailout plan. So we're talking about a fraction of all able homeowners who can even avail of the modification. It seems like a drop in the bucket.
Okay, we brought a couple of examples to show you that when you talk about people can't owe more than 105% of their home's value, let's take a look at what we're talking about here. Okay, you would not qualify if you purchased it for $120,000. It's only worth $80 now, and you owe $100. Well, you owe more than 105% of the value. 105% of the value would be like what $83,000, $85,000, $87,000. Well, you owe $100. The bank says that you purchased it for $120, so you're not eligible. Now, the next slide, here's somebody who would be. Can we see that one? Maybe not. Okay, all right. This would work if you purchase it at $120,000. It's only worth $100,000 now, and you owe $105,000. So you would qualify because you only owe 105% of what the house is worth. So this was somebody who had to have bought a number of years ago and paid it down to only $105,000, or put a lot of money down when they paid the house. That's not who's hurting. Right.
But you know, you've got to...
I mean, who would be eligible here?
Well, you've got to draw the line somewhere. Actually, this plan is estimated to help about 4 to 5 million people who are currently facing foreclosure. So it is some help. You got to draw the line somewhere. If you had shifted the line further up let's say 110, 120%. Sure, I would like to have seen that. You would help more people who are in trouble. But you're also going to start running into criticism about, aren't we helping some borrowers who were simply irresponsible to begin with? Now, I don't think there's as many of those as we like to think. I think the stereotype that the person in trouble now is somebody that just willy-nilly borrowed money knowing they couldn't pay it back. I don't think that's true. I think the lenders and brokers have more responsibility than that. But you got to start somewhere. And this plan, as it is, already costs a lot of money. The further you draw the line up, the more and more the cost is. But we do have to look at it as, you know, foreclosures. People that say, well, why should we help these people who are in trouble? If they're in trouble, that's their own, you know, hole they dug. But the problem is, it's like saying, well, my neighbor's house burned down, so doesn't affect me. Well, it does if your property values go down because your neighbor's house burned down. And what's happening with foreclosures is everybody's values are going down.
Yeah, but if we're trying to create a plan that that actually helps people, what you're talking about here is a plan that isn't going to help FHA borrowers, lower income borrowers, the very people who are buying homes during 2004, 5, and 6, the first-time home buyers. They're the people who are further upside down than what this plan will even afford to help. So you're talking about folks who are very responsible, abided by the guidelines, followed careful advice of their lenders and their real estate agents, and are
they are the ones who are going to be able to refinance, the responsible ones who put money down or have already paid down and have equity in it.
Not necessarily. These people who finance only 97% of their homes through an FHA program, fully documented, can't avail of this because their home values have decreased 30% over the last year, and they only put 3% down. To call them irresponsible, I think, is certainly not.
And I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
I see. So the people who say we're just bailing out people who are irresponsible. You're saying no, not all of them qualify as being irresponsible.
And there's another aspect of this, and by the way, I agree completely with what he just said. And the other side of this is people who are current on their mortgages, people who are not in trouble right now, but who are stuck with an adjustable rate mortgage that got them up to, you know, 14%, 11% right now, and they're looking around and they're seeing mortgage rates now of 5%. They can't refinance because their property values have gone down to the point where they no longer have the 20% equity you need. This plan does address that, you know, by allowing you to qualify for refinancing and allowing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to guarantee these loans where they normally would require 20% equity in your home. It's letting you do that even if you get up to 105%. So again, it's helpful. It doesn't help everybody that needs help, but I don't fault the current administration from starting somewhere.
Okay, let's take a break and talk about the banks have to have an incentive to even buy into this. It is voluntary to help people, and you know what's going to make them give you a longer term or reduce your principal, or you know, I'm asking, are they going to do it? We'll be right back. Terry Smiljanich with ConsumerWarningNetwork.com and also Peter Murphy, real estate consultant. So Peter, let me ask you, you know, they're estimating that like 5 million Americans could refinance. Another 4 million facing foreclosure might be helped by the $75 billion. Are they going to be permanently helped and save their homes, or are we is it going to inevitably happen anyway and we're just postponing it? What do you think?
Well, the one unknown factor is where house values are going. We've seen such a cataclysmic decline in home values over the last 2 years, you know, down 40% by some estimations. And then literally in January, with bank-owned products selling for 57% of what conventional homes have sold for in that same month. I mean, look at that drag on home values that's going on right now. And if that continues, if home values continue to decline, then no financer will want to lend on a product, because they'll simply won't have the equity stake in it to make it work.
So it may just give them a few more months or a year, but they'll lose their homes anyway, in your opinion?
Exactly. If 1 year from now home values are 25% lower than they are today, then sure, people will look at it, throw their hands up in the air, and walk away. Because why would they stay in the game when they own an asset that's now worth 50% less than what they paid for it?
So you're seeing, you told us off camera, and I want you to repeat it, what you're seeing is people who bought a house for $250, now it's only worth $150, and they're saying, I will never, even though I'm keeping up with my payments, I'll never get back up to $250, and what are they doing?
Exactly. Well, in some cases now they're looking at, walking away, and certainly that's not what we want them to do, but they're literally saying, since I'm never going to be able to catch up, since I owe $150,000 on this house and I don't ever see it appreciating that much, why not walk away? What is my incentive to stay in and keep making my mortgage payments? I can go rent for cheaper than my mortgage, and I can let my credit recover.
Wait a minute, don't they ruin their credit by walking away? They're just...
It ruins your credit, and it stays on your records for 7 years if you have a foreclosure like that. But, a lot of people are just putting the keys in the envelope and mailing the envelope to the mortgage company and saying it's yours.
Now, 7 years is better than $150,000 for some people who are only making $40,000 a year. Right. That's 7 years of earning potential.
Even though they're making their payments, they're handing over the keys and walking away.
That's right.
Because they're panicked. They're afraid I will never recover the value.
That's right.
That's a drastic, reaction. And obviously, if you're that far underwater, who can tell you what you should do? I mean, when you're that far underwater, I don't think, there's a lot of people that aren't there yet, and people that are living in a home, are making their payments. The value of your home and whether it's going down or not, ultimately, isn't important to you if it's a home that you're living in and you're making your mortgage payments on, as long as you're not looking at it as purely an investment. But obviously, if you look down the road 30 years and you say, well, this will never get back up to what I owe, and I'm just paying into a black hole, yeah, those people, have some real hard choices to make. But you've got to do what you can to encourage responsible behavior, and just to say, if you're making your mortgage payments, continue to make your mortgage payments, and don't think of a home as an investment. Think of it as a place you live.
But who doesn't look at a home as an investment these days? I haven't sold a home in the last 5 years that wasn't an investment to someone.
By the way, if this is an investment house we're talking about, you would not be eligible for any of these funds. It's only your primary residence. Is that right?
No second mortgages, and also no jumbo mortgages. I believe $417,000 mortgage or more, you don't qualify for.
Okay, Allison via email, I am a responsible homeowner. Well, good to hear it. Glad there's some out there. I have a 30-year fixed mortgage and can afford my monthly payments. However, my house is now worth considerably less than what I paid for it 2 years ago. Does this plan help me, or what is being done to help people like me?
Right. Well, if this person still is not more than 105% underwater, they can take advantage of the refinancing aspects of this if it will lower their mortgage interest rates down to current levels of 5–6%. So it would offer help there. But if there's really upside down, again, like we've talked about, then no, this plan does not provide them any
But I
help.
read that the banks then would have to accommodate these people who were trying to refinance by either reducing the interest or extending the terms of the mortgage. Like, are we going to see a 40-year fixed loan being offered? I mean, is that what we're talking about here?
Remember, this is all voluntary, so the banks have to cooperate in what they're willing to do to modify, and it gets into
you haven't sounded in recent shows like have been very cooperative.
They're not cooperative at all. They would just as soon see the property foreclosed as to try to work hard to keep a person in it. This plan tries to give some additional incentives to lenders, saying if you'll work with the borrower to reduce their monthly payments down to 38% of their income, we, the government, will then split the difference with you down to 31%. And we'll provide $1,000 for every mortgage that you refinance. But whether that's going to be enough, whether it's still simpler for a mortgage company to say, let's just foreclose and be done with it.
What makes you think, Peter, the banks are going to play?
With $1,000 per refinance, I wouldn't play for that. I mean, you're talking about the amount of paperwork that goes into rewriting every one of those loans and just paying $1,000 per modification. It's not worth it. They're not going to play ball, and especially as home values continue to decline. What incentive do they have to do so?
All right, we're going to take a break. Terry's website is getting about 60,000 hits a day from something that hit the national news that his organization suggested that can buy people time if you are facing foreclosure. We'll tell you what it is when we come back. joining today by Peter Murphy and Terry Smiljanich. Tell us why ConsumerWarningNetwork.com got some national play this past week with an idea to helping people in foreclosures, and that is what?
That is called Produce the Note.
Is it like Show Me the Money?
Yeah, Show Me the Money, exactly. It's on our website, and it's received a lot of national attention. AP, CNN, ABC, a lot of different entities. And what it is, it's an attempt to provide some help to people that are in foreclosure, and who are just simply trying to slow things down so that maybe they can work with the bank a little more, because the bank's not returning their calls, is not willing to work with them. They hear about these Obama plans and other plans, and they'd like to participate in them, but meanwhile the sheriff's knocking on the door and they're going to be foreclosed next week. Well, what we talk about on our website is the idea of a simple request to the lender who's suing you. It's saying, let me see the note. You say, I owe you this money, and it's based on a note, a mortgage. Let me see the original note, not a copy of it. Let me see the original, because whoever holds that original is the one that has the right, to enforce the debt.
Well, I thought these things had been sliced and diced and chopped up and bundled and sent off to wherever.
The problem is there's still an original note somewhere. But yeah, but it's been chopped up and diced and sold and resold and resold. And the banks, what it forces the mortgage lender to do is say, ooh, where is the note? And they have to go find it. And maybe sometimes they can't find it. They can still go to court and say, well, we can't find the note, but here's the proof that we have that we're the appropriate. So it's not a way to help like deadbeats or something, and to just stay in a home for free.
Because if they find the note, you're still going to be foreclosed on. You're
still going to be foreclosed on. But if it buys you an extra 8 months where you can work with the bank and try to modify, and maybe also people that have adopted the strategy, what we've seen often is that because they've taken that approach, suddenly the lender has gotten a lot more interested in returning their phone calls and working with them.
It gets them actually in dialogue with the
squeaky wheel gets the oil, and so they get a little more attention from the bank, and they're willing to maybe work with them. So it's not a magic bullet of any kind, but it is an approach that people who are in those kind of desperate straits where they're about to have their property sold out from underneath their feet, to buy some time to see if they can work something out.
And you've seen it work for people.
Oh, we've seen it work for people, and there's lawyers in other states that have told us they've adopted the strategy, and they found that courts are very receptive to it.
Show me the note.
Show me the note.
That's fascinating.
Right.
Melanie via email, I really don't have any sympathy for the people who took those mortgages they couldn't afford. My heart goes out to the people that did the right thing and still at the end of the day find themselves in foreclosure. Luckily, I'm not one of them. So that's what a lot of people are saying. I bought 10 years ago, and I've, paid my mortgage down to half, and those people bought 3 years ago. They knew they couldn't afford it on $20,000 a year. They bought a $250,000 home. No sympathy.
Right. That's why
we're rewarding bad behavior. That's what people are thinking.
If Obama had said, or if the plan had said 120% instead of 105% or 130%, people such as this person who have a legitimate gripe would even have more to complain about. Well, why are you helping these people that, borrowed too much money? Again, it's not fair to many, many, many people that are in this situation because of unscrupulous behavior by people that got them into the situation. Yes, there are irresponsible people out there that got themselves into this, but let's put the ultimate blame not on the poor homeowner. Let's put the ultimate blame on the people that forced this into the system by their practices a few years ago, where they were being told, get these mortgages out the door, get these advertised, sell as many as you can.
Blame on both sides, clearly.
Well, understandably, but most of the people who got into those loans, like you said, were not folks who were coerced into banking those loans. These were people who went in and sat at the closing table under the presupposition that home prices would never stop declining, increasing, values would continue to rise, and once that stopped being true, that's when everything fell apart. So I think that everyone went in there with disclosure. There were some cases where you had a person who went in there who was deceived, but I think that's really a fragment of the reality. And the email that we got from this emailer, her sympathy needs to be with some of those people who did the right thing, the FHA borrowers, the first-time home buyers who were allowed to only put 5% down and buy. They made a good decision without coercion.
And again, foreclosures in her neighborhood are affecting her. That
is a good point. People feel like, well, let them fall. because it's not me, but if it happens to the house next door to you, then it does affect.
That's
so
right.
really, we really have to, I mean, it is a village here.
Right.
Bay Area homeowner, via email, I can tell you, having worked for mortgages for some time, that most borrowers don't really have a clue as to what they're getting into. They look to their lender or their broker to explain the process. The mountain of paperwork they sign at closing does not help to clarify anything. If the lender says they're approved, that is what they think they can afford. Boy, is that true.
Boy.
Now that the lenders have tightened their requirements, they only hear denied and don't understand what happened. I think this plan is too little, too late.
Well, here to a large extent, because we get these emails every day from people who explain, you know, how they got into the circumstances they're in, and you know, they go to a closing, and they look at something and it says that their stated income is this. They go, well, that's not right. Well, don't worry about that. No, it's just a formality. You know, this says this is my primary.
Or not even that, Terry. You know, you're signing pieces of paper that if I didn't have a lawyer with me, you might not know.
Sign here, sign here, sign here.
The process, I sat on closing tables all throughout that, and the process in some cases was that deceptive. But the simple truth is, you pay, you stay, you don't, you won't. How much more simple is it? How many borrowers were buying houses who didn't understand that? And if they didn't understand that, then what business did they have buying, period? So to blame coercive mortgagees, coercive lenders, you know, undisclosing real estate agents on this is really to pass the buck. Borrowers borrowed with the perception that home values would never stop increasing, and that's the problem. They started decreasing, and they ended up in this trouble.
I disagree to some extent. To me, the situation is you've got two people at the table, a very sophisticated business person and an unsophisticated borrower. Now, yes, there are exceptions to that, but when you're going to start placing blame, I think to blame the victim is not right.
So what do you think the numbers are out of line of how many people they say will actually be helped by this? You know, if you have 13 million Americans who are underwater in their homes, and they say that up to 9 million will be helped by this plan, do you really think 9 million will be helped, or are they just... Is that just political hype?
That's really hard to say, and it's the typical up to, you know.
It all depends on what the lenders will actually do. Will they take this and run with it?
That's the big question.
There we go. You never know.
Right.
We're going to reach out to some bankers. We're going to continue this conversation and ask the bankers what incentive they have. Are they going to play? Are they going to play through? So we'll continue to follow it, and we'll be right back. Terry Smiljanich's website, consumerwarningnetwork.com, has information about that Show Me the Note strategy that has gotten all the national attention, which you might want to check out if you are in foreclosure. Might buy you some time there. And Peter Murphy with Home Encounters and Ybor City Real Estate Consultant. Thank you, gentlemen. And very interesting topic. It affects so many people today, so thanks for giving us some clarity about this, hopefully. And thanks to all of you for great emails today. Always glad to get the emails because we want to hear what people are saying out there. That'll do it for us at noon. See you again at 5 o'clock, everybody. Have a great afternoon.